Welcome to the online class, my dear students. In the last class, we discussed block diagram of a computer, or else in the exam, he is going to ask for 5 marks, explain the functional components of a computer system, right? So today we are going to discuss a topic called memory unit, and afterwards main memory, secondary memory, right? So from the last class explanation, we have 4 units, that is the input unit, central processing unit, memory unit, output unit. So in the examination, suppose he is going to ask, write a note on a memory unit or explain the concept of computer memory, means we have to write what we are going to discuss today, right? So first thing, memory unit. In the study of a computer system, it is very important to know the concept called memory, because what this memory unit is nothing but it is a place where user entered information, user entered data or information is going to be stored. This memory unit is classified into 2 types. First one is main memory and second one is secondary memory. And this memory is going to be measured with the unit called bit or byte or word. This memory is going to be measured using a unit called bit or byte or word. A binary digit, it may be, binary digit means it may be 0 or 1. A binary digit is going to be considered as bit, means 1 bit, means 1 bit of memory means it is able to hold a binary digit 0 or 1. So what is a bit? A bit is a memory unit, which is able to store binary digit 0 or 1 is going to be considered as 1 bit. What is a bit? It is a memory unit. It is able to store a binary digit, either it may be 0 or 1. Second one is byte. Sequence of 8 bits makes 1 byte. So 1 byte of memory means 8 bits. 8 bits makes 1 byte. So how to define byte? 1 byte It is a memory unit which contains a sequence of 8 bits. So sequence of 8 bits makes 1 byte. Similarly, word is also a unit of memory. A word consists of 2 bytes or sequence of 16 bits. Sequence of 16 bits makes 1 byte, or sequence of 2 bytes makes 1 word, right? But in generally, memory is going to be measured in byte only. Memory is going to be measured in byte only. For example, you may heard megabyte, gigabyte, terabyte, right? So like that, computer memory is generally is going to be measured in byte only. Okay, let us see. That is the those are the units. Memory is going to be measured with the help of units like bit, byte, or word. Now let us see here. So what is a memory? A memory is a place where user entered data or information is going to be stored. For example, just you consider a notebook where you can write information into the page, or you can read information from the page. In the same manner, in the memory you can store information, or else that memory is also going to be used to read the information, right? So this memory is divided into 2 parts. First one is main memory, second one is secondary memory. What is a main memory? Main memory is a one where usually user entered information or instructions, input is going to be stored, is called main memory. Means main memory is one which contains data or instructions entered by the user which is going for processing, is called main memory. Means main memory is also a space to store data, but which data is going to be stored in the main memory? Means data or instructions which are entered by the user and which is going for processing is going to be stored in the main memory, which is going to be stored in the main memory. Suppose with the help of system I am going to write one leave letter or one personal letter. Like that I am going to prepare some notes for future purpose. I am going to prepare some notes. That is not going to be stored in the main memory. What is going to be stored in the main memory? The data or information entered by the user and which is going for processing is going to be stored in the main memory. Right, is going to be stored in the main memory. Means whatever the data information which is going to be considered as input, that is going to be stored in the main memory. Whatever the data user is going to be entered is not going to be stored in the main memory. Of course, the data is entered by user only, but data instruction entered by the user which is going for processing, means input is going to processing, right? So that thing is going to be stored in main memory. Then this main memory, that is nothing but main memory, and this main memory is made up of semiconductor material. This main memory is made up of semiconductor material, and its storage capacity is very less compared to secondary memory. It is going to be measured in megabyte. It is going to be measured in megabyte. And next thing, secondary, this main memory is also called as primary memory. This main memory is also called primary memory. Means the data or information which is entered by the user which is going for processing is stored in main memory, and whenever the power goes off or after processing, the data which is stored in the main memory is erasable, is erased. It is not going to be stored permanently, right? That's why this is also called temporary memory. Temporary memory. And the next thing, what is a secondary memory? What is secondary memory? What is mean by secondary memory? So it is also a type of memory where data, where what is mean by secondary memory means it's a type of memory where huge amount of data is going to be stored, is called secondary memory, and which is going to be, which will be there permanently in the memory is called secondary memory. Means here also user is going to in the secondary memory also user entered data is going to be stored, but that is not going for processing. It will be stored with some name, means which is going to be stored permanently. So that memory is called secondary memory. So this secondary memory is also called what? Permanent memory or backup memory or an auxiliary memory. So what? Secondary memory is also called permanent memory or backup memory or an auxiliary memory. Means whenever user entering information or data or information, that is going to be stored in secondary memory, and that is going to be stored in permanently. It means whenever the power goes off, the data or instruction which is entered by the user, which is going to be stored in a secondary memory, is not going to be erased. Whereas in a primary memory, data which is entered by the user, which is going for processing, is going to be stored in primary memory, and which is not going to be stored permanently. When the power goes off, automatically the data is erased, or after processing, after displaying result, that data is erased, which is going to be stored in main memory. But whatever the data or information which is entered by the user, which is going to be stored in secondary memory with some name, that is permanent. that is not going to be erased when power goes on, power goes off, or when after some days whenever the user log into the system or open the system, he can see previous instruction data which is entered previously. That thing he is going to be stored, he is going to be seen. Means whatever the data or instructions stored in a secondary memory, that thing is going to be there permanently. That's why it is also called permanent memory. So this secondary memory is made up of magnetic material, and this secondary memory has huge data storage capacity. For example, its capacity is a terabyte. Like this. This is the information regarding memory unit. So in the last class we discussed block diagram of a computer system, or else so in the last class we discussed functional components of a computer system. There we have a unit called memory unit. I said just write in brief about all the functional unit, but in the examination or in the test he asked write a note on a memory unit. Means what we discussed in this class, we have to write this concept. Means what we discussed in the block diagram of computer, there we draw a neat block diagram of a computer with 4 units: input unit, CPU, memory unit, output unit, right? How that process is going on means, when user accepts data, that is going to be, when user enter data, that is accepted by input unit and it converts it into binary form. After converting binary form, input unit sends it to CPU. In that CPU accepts binary input, binary form input, and it process on it and it produce result in the binary form. So that binary form result is sent to output unit. Output unit accepts that binary form output and it converts it into user entered form. Afterwards, that converted, that binary to user entered form is converted, result is displayed with the help of output devices such as monitor or printer, right? And that after processing, that data may be stored in memory unit for future purpose, right? So this thing we discussed. So there just we written memory unit is a place where user entered data is going to be stored for future purpose. Okay. So in detail, suppose he is asked write a note on a memory unit, means we have to write what we discussed in this class. Means we have to write what is memory unit and how that unit memory is classified, that is classified into primary and secondary, and afterwards you explain that primary memory as well as secondary memory, or else just you list the differences between primary memory, main memory and secondary memory, or else in the examination we can expect questions like differentiate main memory and secondary memory. What is the differentiations? Differences means first one, main memory is a temporary memory. Whereas secondary memory is a permanent memory, right? And second one, main memory is also called primary memory. This secondary is also called primary memory or an auxiliary memory. And in this main memory, which data is going to be stored? Input data which is going for processing is stored, right? Input data which is going for processing is stored in main memory. And what is going to be stored in secondary memory? Data or instructions which are needed in future are stored. And the next one, this main memory is made up of semiconductor memory, and this secondary memory is made up of magnetic material, right? Like this we can differentiate primary memory as well as secondary memory. And next point we can write, fifth point, main memory is main memory again classified into RAM and ROM. Or else we can say RAM and ROM are examples for main memory. Secondary memory ke magnetic tape, drum, CD, hard disk, etc., pen drive, etc. are examples for secondary memory. Means main memory capacity is very less. Main memory data storage capacity is very less, whereas secondary memory data storage capacity is more. Secondary memory data storage capacity is more. So these are the points. These points tells difference between primary memory and secondary memory. Okay. So in the next chapter, second chapter, we are going to discuss more about memory, memory classification, memory devices, because second chapter is input, output, memory devices. So this is enough for this class concerned. For first chapter purpose, this is enough. That is definition of memory. And memory is classified into two types: main memory secondary memory. Whenever we are going to study second chapter, there we are going to discuss more about memory classification. That is, this main memory is classified into RAM, ROM, this secondary memory classification. So that thing again, what is mean by RAM, what is mean by ROM, what is going to be stored in RAM, what is going to be stored in ROM, that thing we are going to discuss in the second chapter. Okay, for the first chapter concerned, this is the primary information about memory. Okay, thank you students.